Hey guys, we are moving on with our lesson. It's going to be a short one today. We are on page 82 in your grammar handbooks. It is section 13, and we are going over correctness when composing a sentence. So we're going to talk about sentence fragments and sentence run-ons today. This all should just be a little review for you. So first let's talk about what a sentence is. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought and can stand alone. Key words there when you're talking about fragments is that it can stand alone. Every grammatical sentence must have a subject, expressed or understood, and a predicate. For example, the study of the immune system is called immunology. That has a subject, a predicate, and a complete thought. So that is a grammatically correct sentence. A fragment, however, is a separated sentence part that does not express a complete thought. Dependent clauses, verbal phrases, and appositive phrases are common types of fragments. These elements must not be punctuated as sentences. So let's look at an example. Michael stayed up late, period. Working on an overdue assignment, period. I automatically see an issue with this. The first part sounds fine. Michael stayed up late. You have a subject, you have a verb or a predicate, and you have a complete thought. But the second part, working on an overdue assignment, that's not complete. There's something missing from that. So that would be called a fragment. Now, a fragment can often be corrected by simply rejoining it to the sentence from which it was separated. So the way we would fix this is we would take this period away, make this W lowercase, and say Michael stayed up late working on an overdue assignment, period. Simple enough. You have now fixed your fragment and made it part of the sentence that it was fragmented from. Other ways that you can, or other examples, Nehemiah sought God's will for 4 months, period, before he knew exactly what God wanted him to do, period. Once again, you need to put the sentence back together. So instead of a period and a capital letter, you would simply say, Nehemiah sought God's will for 4 months before he knew exactly what God wanted him to do, period. This should be review. It shouldn't be anything too difficult for you, but if you have a question, please let me know. Note that sometimes words may need to be added or deleted and the fragment made into a separate sentence. For example, one of my friends who won a contest by playing a variety of instruments, and then it stops. That's a fragment. The independent part of this group of words has no predicate. So how would we fix this? We would change the sentence around. We would say, one of my friends won a contest by playing a variety of instruments. The subject of the dependent clause was removed to fix it. So remember, usually you can just take a fragment and add it back to the sentence. But if you're completely missing a part, you may need to change the sentence around the way that it was written. So I want you to look in your workbooks now, on page 30 and do exercise 61. It says, in the blank before each number, write S if the group of words contains only sentences. Write frag, F-R-A-G, if the group of words contains a fragment. So you may have a full sentence and then a fragment. Or you may have 2 full sentences, and you need to tell me, are these sentences or is there a fragment in there somewhere? And then for exercise 62, I want you to correct those fragments. So you can either do it in your book or on a separate sheet of paper, but the ones that contain a fragment you'll need to fix. So moving on, this is on page 83 in your handbooks, and it's section 14, run-on sentences. So what is the opposite of a fragment? It's a run-on, a sentence that's too long. A run-on sentence is 2 or more sentences written incorrectly as one sentence. Sentences cannot be correctly written with only a comma between the sentences or with no punctuation between. So, For example, nothing is all dark. There cannot be a picture without its bright spots. This is two sentences that have been pushed together with only a comma. So there are a couple ways that we can fix a run-on sentence. Run-on sentences can be fixed by separating the sentences into two distinct sentences and then putting a period in your capitalization. So we could say, nothing is all dark, period, capital T, there cannot be a picture without its bright spots, period, and make it two independent sentences. Or, if the ideas are closely related, that they form one thought or are equally important, you may use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. For example, take time to deliberate, lose no time in executing your resolutions. That's a run-on. But if we add a comma and a coordinating conjunction, we can make it a sentence. Take time to deliberate, comma, but lose no time in executing your resolutions. And then a third way that you can fix it, if the ideas in the sentence are so closely related as to form one thought and are equally important, you may use a semicolon. So, God will prune his people, but not hew them down. The right hand of his mercy knows what the left hand of his severity is doing. That's a run-on. There's no punctuation in there to tell me that this is not two sentences written as one. But if we put a semicolon in there, we'll fix the problem. God will prune his people, but not hew them down, semicolon. The right hand of his mercy knows what the left hand of his severity is doing. That would correct the problem. And then the last way that you can fix a run-on sentence is if the ideas in the sentences are so closely related as to form one thought, but are not equally important, you should subordinate the less important sentence. That is, make the less important sentence into a dependent clause. So, how would we do that? A man's temper gets the best of him. It reveals the worst of him. So we could easily take this and make it into a correct sentence using, by making one of your clauses a dependent clause. So maybe we would put, when a man's temper gets the best of him, comma, it reveals the worst of him. That would correct your problem. So, for this exercise, we're on page 31 in your workbooks, and it's exercise 63, sentences and run-ons. Some of the following groups of words are correctly written, and others contain run-ons. Put S before the number of the correctly written sentences, and put RO before the run-ons. So you're doing the exact same thing that you did with the fragments, except you're doing it for the run-ons. And then for exercise 64, same thing, go back and correct those run-on sentences on a separate sheet of paper or in your book, it doesn't matter. But go back, and the ones that had a run-on sentence, go ahead and correct those.